I was at the game on Monday night. I somehow got in the building, Jake Fischer. Ben Simmons was not allowed in. He had a text to get in the building. I'm allowed in. Ben Simmons is not. That's because he didn't tell anybody he was coming. Give us a little background on what happened Monday that propelled Simmons to finally show up unannounced.
I think the unfortunate thing here is I don't know why Ben decided to show up on Monday, and I don't think the Sixers know why either. When Daryl Morey and Elton Brand sat down with Ben Simmons at the team's practice facility last night on Tuesday, they asked him for reasoning behind his appearance and the surprise behind it, and he just said apparently something along the lines of, I just decided to come. And I talked to people with his representation team, and it's pretty clear that him showing up by surprise was by design, that they wanted to take the Sixers by surprise for whatever reason. I don't know the reasoning, but they thought this was some type of next step in their path towards pushing Ben to a different team.
So he doesn't show up because he wants to play in Philadelphia, essentially. He shows up because every door has been kind of shut in his face. Is that how it kind of seems, Jake?
Well, the way it's been communicated to me, and I've talked to high-ranking people on both sides of this issue, let's say, in the last, over the last couple of days, and a lot of people yesterday. And it seems like, from the jump, this started back at the Combine in Chicago when Rich Paul, Ben Simmons' agent, found Daryl Morey and Elton Brand on separate occasions and said that Ben was looking to be moved and to be traded elsewhere. And he hasn't really said exactly why in much certain terms to Philadelphia people, but from the conversations I've had, clearly he's kind of exhausted by the pressure cooker of this situation of playing in this market with the fit questions that have always existed between him and Joel. Obviously, they're the two crown jewels of the process, and his lack of shooting and their size and spacing issues has been, as big a theme and a big talking point with his team as any throughout Ben's career. You throw in the Game 7 loss and the Doc post-game comments on what Joel said post-game, and I think that's where they started to view the situation was irreparable for them. But the Sixers didn't want to trade Ben Simmons, even after the Game 7 woes and not being able to score in the fourth quarter and passing up that open dunk. The Sixers still to this day want Ben Simmons in town. They're just open to moving him if Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal or someone of that nature would become available. And I think knowing that's also helped increase Ben Simmons' want and interest to play elsewhere as well.
Jake, obviously, he didn't talk to the team since August. So do we know any details on how the meeting went between Simmons and the team, that he got his first chance to kind of say, hey, I'm back, it's good to see you? Or did he sit in the corner quiet and let his representatives speak for him? How did yesterday essentially go?
So from what I've been told, he essentially just met in a private conference room, let's say, with Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers. Elton Brand was not present to my knowledge. And I think from there, Doc and Daryl started going over kind of their plan to reintegrate him. I think that's been the Sixers' big focus here from the conversations I've had. It sounds like the Sixers have been just preparing and doing their diligence from talking with the sports psychologist to hire a new shooting coach. And, they also just have plans for physical, this weightlifting type stuff and film session type stuff they have planned for him to kind of ease him back into, the Sixers team environment, being that they've been in a training camp situation for weeks now, and he hasn't been a part of the team, and opening night is next week. So, I think that was the primary focus of the conversation. As I wrote in an article today on Bleacher Report that you were referencing earlier, the Sixers did ask him why he came back and why he wants out. And the only thing he really did tell and reiterate to Daryl and Doc on Tuesday, what I was told, was that he just wants a fresh start and a new situation. And he's back. We don't know if he's going to play. Maybe that's your next question. But for now, he is back with the intent of being a professional, it sounds like. with the goal of ultimately playing elsewhere, sometime soon, he hopes.
So, yes, eventually we'll get to the question on whether or not we anticipate him playing, but many people, the fans obviously, Jake, believe he's only back because he's getting fined. So is he back so that he doesn't get fined?
I don't definitively have that answer. There are definitely a lot of people in the NBA who believe that is the case, being that coincidentally he showed up right when his total number of fines and missed game checks was hovering right around $1 million. That's a pretty big benchmark number, right? I talked to a couple other agents in the NBA who were kind of like, whoa, that is a massive dollar amount to lose a client and to still have nothing change in the situation. But then, there are people at Clutch Sports I talked to who basically implied this was kind of the plan all along. He was willing to miss game checks and be a distraction and try to force their hand to trade him during training camp, but that perhaps, maybe he was going to report back regardless with the idea that maybe they could recoup some of this money. That doesn't seem likely from people I've talked to in the players union and around the league. But I don't know if there really was a method to the madness and to him returning and all that. Otherwise, that they wanted to create a bit of a media storm to push or to force Daryl Morey's hand. And I combine force and push there, and try to get a move out of town, but it didn't materialize. And I think he realizes now the best option moving forward was at least to report to Philadelphia instead of collecting those fines, like you mentioned.
Jake Fischer from Bleacher Report. His article is up at bleacherreport.com. You can follow him at Jake L. Fischer. What is the relationship between Ben and Doc Rivers? Is that a part of the frostiness between a return here? Do they not get along? Do they not see eye to eye? Is there some sort of issue with those two?
I don't know if there's an issue specifically. It was just I've been told that they never really have gone off onto great footing together. I'm sure there's an element of the head coach who used to be a point guard being a bit overbearing or more demanding of his floor general, if you will. But I also think there's been a personality clash. It seems like they're just kind of different people, and just haven't really been able to find a synergy alongside each other. I also think catering to Joel Embiid and having this offense and this whole franchise really start to be revolving around him. I mean, it makes sense that it has, right? He was just the number 2 runner-up in MVP, or the lead runner-up, the number 2 in the MVP voting in the league. But I'm sure that might, in their relationship with Doc, I'm sure that's also reflected too, in that Simmons is not the centerpiece of this offense. It is Joel. So I think, yes, mending that relationship is going to be important here. But also, it doesn't seem like they've been really best buds throughout this anyway. So I think I don't know if this will be that much more of a dramatic change of events from where the relationship was previously, being that they've been talking all offseason. Whenever the Sixers had obviously you said they were out of contact for a month, which they were. They haven't spoken to Ben since that August meeting in Rich Paul's home. But every time they did have that meeting, or just they gathered on Tuesday, it's been Doc. So Doc's been involved. So I don't know if it's necessarily a roadblock for it moving forward.
Obviously, the light little back and forth between I don't want to play with Joel or his game doesn't match mine. Joel fired back and said, everything we've done is for you. Can those two guys get past it? From what we understand, like, we know their relationship is kind of awkward, not best of friends, but is that going to be something that will be a hurdle as well?
I'm sure it's going to be part of the Sixers have this elaborate plan to reintegrate Ben into the team environment, right? Like we were talking about before. I'm sure one of those steps are to clear the air and make sure that water gets under that bridge between Joel and Ben. But I think at the end of the day, in the NBA, winning ultimately trumps everything. And, both Embiid and Ben had their contracts locked up, but, they clearly both have aspirational goals in terms of legacy, in terms of stature in the NBA. And to do that successfully, you have to win. And I think when a team is winning, it can push a lot of that negativity and that nonsense to the side and A winning locker room is pretty typically a happy one. So if they come back and Ben does play and they start off hot, I mean, this was the team that was the number one seed in the Eastern Conference last year, right? Kyrie's doing what he's doing up in Brooklyn. The Bucks won the title, obviously, but they're not a team that I would say is demonstrably better with Philadelphia full strength. And who knows, maybe Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal do become disgruntled sometime in the early aughts here, and there's a trade that gets made for one of those guys. But for now, I think as long as the Sixers come back to full strength with Ben Simmons in the lineup and they're successful, a lot of these issues, a lot of these interpersonal disconnects can kind of get not glossed over, but mended a little bit, not fully healed, but mended a little bit in terms of they're always showing up in that victory column.
Jake Fischer, Bleacher Report. In your article, you mentioned that there is a plethora of teams, 9 by name, a 10th mystery team, but obviously none of them have made a deal that would make the Sixers want to pull the trigger on this right now. So during this whole thing, Morey has kind of remained like, we don't want to move him, as you said, unless there's this thing. But is he back just to get moved to anybody, or is he back and the Sixers want to convince him along the way, or is he only acquiescing if they agree to try to get him out of here? Whether a deal that the Sixers want appears to them or not.
Ben Simmons and his representatives have had it made very clear to them that the Sixers are not going to trade him for a deal they deem is below his value, or something that is not going to simultaneously keep them at the same level of championship contention while also keeping them in the mix to have a package that would go and help them get a Damian Lillard or a Bradley Beal. And they're aware that probably might not happen until December. So I think for now, Ben is reporting back. Yeah, I think not losing money is probably a big part of that calculus. But also, I think they're willing to do what they can to get him out of town. And there's certainly a notion that some people in the league have that, you see him if he gets back, and he's playing well and someone gets an injury, maybe there's a trade opportunity there too. I think he is what he is. People know he's a 25-year-old, 3-time All-Star who just finished runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year. I think their offers are just lower right now because they think Philly's in a position of weakness and that they don't need to provide their largest offer they can because Philly has to trade him somehow. Right. Philly's point is they don't. So it's a matter of which side's going to bend and break. But I also think it's a matter of what other circumstances reveal themselves that allow another team to make a bigger offer, or that allows Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal to become, available on that open market.
Jake, I got about 30 seconds. They play on the road Wednesday night in New Orleans. They play at home on Friday against the Nets. Will he be on the floor for either one of those games?
Why not? I think it's trending that direction. If he's not playing in their season opener, something catastrophic would have had to happen.
All right, so it looks like you think Ben Simmons will be back on the floor opening night, Wednesday, right here. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, the book is Built to Lose. Get Jake Fischer's book. It'll tell you the story of how they got Ben Simmons and how other teams have tried to follow suit. It's called Built to Lose, how the NBA's tanking era changed the league forever. Yeah, you got guys signing 4-year. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. You got guys signing 4-year deals who no longer want to play under those 4-year deals. That's how the tanking era changed. Jake Fischer, Bleacher Report. He goes into detail on a lot of things that happened. We mentioned the part, Doc Rivers, in the article. He is in a meeting with Clutch, and he basically shouts out at Rich Paul's home. It's in your bleeping contract to report and play. Obviously, Rivers frustrated and to the point where I'm not going to put up with this. He wants to see his guy back. This thing is going to be interesting.